Welcome back to Mystic Fix. We just heard from author Sherry Mandel about the Kabbalah of writing, and now we're going to meet Frater Tenebris and learn a little bit about dark paganism. So if you've ever embraced your goth side, this might be for you, exploring the shadow self, not necessarily being evil. Let's take a listen. Well, welcome to Mystic Fix, Frater Tenebris. And, I brushed up on my Latin a little bit for you there. Frater meaning brother, like fraternity, right? And Tenebris means dark.
That's right.
And I was interested in that. I mean, of course, it's the perfect complement to your book, which is the Philosophy of Dark Paganism, Wisdom and Magic to Cultivate the Self. Let's start there because I think when people hear of darkness, we talk about being in the light and we think of darkness as evil, but that's not really the case, right?
No, you're right. It is a common thought. And that gets back to the primal fears that we have. Our ancestors, the darkness was a dangerous time. And you didn't have to go very far back before the lighting of the cities, where traveling at night was dangerous. So we kind of inherited this fear of the darkness, of the term, or the term became a metaphor for our fears. But in this context, dark represents the interior, the inside point of view. Plato had a famous allegory of the cave, and we could use the cave in the same way here. The outside of the cave is light during the daytime. The inside of the cave, though, is dark. And this represents two approaches to spirituality. The light side is a focus on the external for the source of meaning, while the dark is a metaphor for the seeking the self, going inside, turning to the divine self in search of meaning.
And that's so interesting, getting back to Plato's allegory, because of course the people in the cave were watching the shadows on the wall, and you talk about shadow work in your book. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a cool way to look at it. I love that allegory. I talk to my clients about it all the time. How would you, Frater, how would you define dark paganism?
Well, the way I define it is that it's a life-affirming, positive spirituality that focuses on honoring the divine self and cultivating the self. And that's the definition I use in my book. And it's one that I was inspired by an author, John J. Coughlin, who wrote the book Out of Shadows, Out of the Shadow. I'm sorry. Whose thoughts about dark paganism really inspired what became my book.
Okay. And so how can you elaborate more on how these practices are integrated with dark paganism for that cultivating the self through wisdom and magic?
Well, in my book, one of the key elements starts with self-knowledge. Know thyself is ancient pagan wisdom, goes back to the Temple of Delphi.
Right.
And this is where it really begins. To know yourself. How can you cultivate something you don't even know? And then you go to self-acceptance, which includes self-love, not to be confused with selfishness. Those are two different things.
Okay.
And then it builds on that. Also, part of self-acceptance is shadow work. That's both self-knowledge and self-acceptance, because you're accepting your total self, warts and all. And shadow work helps you in that. So, and this builds.
To be clear on that, so shadow work is the things maybe that we think are wrong with our personality, right? Where we feel we have our Achilles heels or our sinful natures or that sort of thing, right?
Well, Jung said that the shadow is always unconscious. You never know the shadow. So even if you say, hey, that's my Achilles heel, well, it's no longer shadow because now it's been made light.
Okay, you've identified it. And
Right.
that's what you do then? You're going into the darkness to identify it?
There you go. Indeed. And
Okay.
that can come from meditation,
Uh-huh.
journaling. Those are very useful for shadow work. Um, Analyzing yourself. You don't have to go to an analytical psychologist for shadow work. They're great, but you
Uh-huh.
don't have to. And who of us has the resources and the time to do so?
Sure.
But meditation, journaling. Why did I blow up at that person today? I wasn't angry, but why did I jump on that person? What was going on at that time? Ask yourself questions like that. And as you can explore, you can start reaching into those issues that you never really thought about. And by the way, not all shadow is wrong. Healthy behaviors get crushed down into the shadow sometimes.
How so?
And
Can you give me an
well,
example
let's
of
say
that?
someone who sometimes, okay, fear of public speaking sometimes is an
Okay.
example. They're fearful of public speaking, but they don't know why. And it might, in some cases, it's because of their upbringing. They had an experience as a child or a domineering parent. Don't speak
Okay.
unless spoken to.
Okay.
And so this healthy behavior, public speaking, being able to speak in crowds, what you and I do was public speaking. Some individuals cannot do that. And
Mm.
sometimes it's because of life experiences that they're unaware of and may have even forgotten. So that would be something in the shadow, the ability to speak in public that could come out from shadow work, meditation, journaling. If you're like me as a practicing pagan, there are rituals that can be performed that can help spiritual powers. You're very good with tarot.
Hmm.
You are a tarot specialist. And by the way, I love your programs where
Oh,
you talk
thank
about
you.
tarot. Um, the tarot can help, and you could speak better about this than I. The tarot can help you along these lines to explore yourself. And that's just one more tool that it can
Sure.
help.
Yeah, the psychologist Carl Jung used tarot.
Yes,
Yeah.
you did.
Um, can you talk about some of the key principles or beliefs in dark paganism?
There's no universal aspect to that because dark paganism is a very personal system. So if you read my book, you're going to get what it means to me. You read the work of John Coughlin, Raven Digitalis, other dark pagan authors, you're going to get a different spin on this. You asked about specific beliefs. But my viewpoint, um, meaning is something we give ourselves. It's not given to us by the universe. That's not to say there's not divinity in the universe
Hmm.
or spirits or gods, but meaning for my life is something I give myself on that. That is very personal meaning to as part of dark paganism. It gives me responsibility for myself, but it also is freeing at the same time. I mentioned about self-love. That's a belief. We're social creatures. That's why it's not about selfishness. To truly understand yourself, you have to understand the self in relations to others.
Okay.
So there's so much more I could ramble on about
Yeah.
that.
No, I really resonate with a lot of this because, when I'm reading the cards, I've always been of the belief system that I don't have to follow a certain spread, or sometimes a card has one meaning in all the books, but in that moment, to me, it's going to say something completely different because of just the way it's hitting me in the moment with this particular person in this particular context. So,
Right.
then I'm following my higher self and what I would call my God self. And
Like that.
yeah, yeah. So, one of the most beautiful things I think is uh, belief systems are very similar across cultures, different packages, different brands, but how we do things is
Mhm.
is the same. And I can look at Native American practices, and I can look at South American shamans, and I can look at Celts, and I can look at Nordic traditions, and Christianity and Judaism and Muslim. And
Mhm.
yeah, and it's so fascinating to me. And yeah, I just I'm sort of a culture junkie that way, I think. We talk about the word magic, and I like to always point out that we spell it Magick, to differentiate from pulling the rabbit out of the hat and
Right.
the tricks, right? What is the role of magic in this spiritual path?
Oh, that's a great question, because that is one of the 9 dark pagan principles is magic. Um, Magic invariably changes oneself when you practice magic. When I got started with magic years ago, I remember reading about that in a variety of works. And I went, isn't magic all about, increasing your paycheck? Isn't it all about money and finding love and all that stuff? And yeah, it does have that part, but there's a feedback loop. To do magic right, you invariably have to put some of you into that. We live in an interconnected cosmos. Okay. So I have to have a relationship. I connect with the cosmos, and invariably it changes me. And over the years, I've learned that really, out of all the magic I've done, I changed more than anything I changed in the world.
Ah.
So that's a great question. It is, I consider, an integral part, to the point that I made it one of my 9 dark pagan principles
Mm-hmm.
in my book, because of the feedback, the changes it has to oneself.
And so how could an individual incorporate magic in their daily life?
Oh, that's a great question. One, there's different types of magic. There's magic where there's theurgy, where you work with a deity, god, goddess, spirit, ancestors. There's also thaumaturgy, which is the classic magic that we think of, casting spells and so forth. How do you make it incorporate into your daily life? Meditation's a good step. There are rituals you can perform to give yourself confidence in your daily life. Let's say when you go to work, rituals you can do to calm yourself down, talismans you can wear that can help give you confidence, help your health, increase your luck.
Mm-hmm.
It really, magic, if one makes it a lifestyle, the benefits are great. And I do think the benefits are more to the individual than the world around them.
Yeah, and I think that people don't realize you don't have to be trained in these exact spells with certain amounts of ingredients. And yeah, I'm looking right in front of me on my desk. I have the Hawaiian goddess Ku, and
Oh, yeah.
and I have a kind of a personal story and familiarity with that. And I've also got a picture of my oldest son when he was about 2.
That's
and,
great.
it's my way of staying connected with a visual kind
Sure.
of. It's a little altar of sorts under my monitor.
I like that. I like
Yeah.
that a lot. And visual is a good point. A ritual, in many ways, has been referred to as I don't want to say psychopomp, that's something else, but it's a tool. It's human nature to have something like that to spark, to focus on. You know, TV shows, they'll have a magician, he just waves his hand and magic happens. And that's not reality. That's not how
Right.
we are. We're nudging the universe. We're putting a little weight on that, on the scale to kind of
Yeah.
move things along. Probability enhancement is one of the
Yeah.
definitions of magic. We're increasing the odds that something will happen that we want or not happen.
Right. And so to get back to your book, The Philosophy of Dark Paganism, you really go into, you have some practical techniques and some exercises, right? And there's sort of a balance between the darkness and the well-being that we have. Is there any misconceptions or misunderstandings you'd like to address?
Well, you brought up a very good one at the beginning, that the term dark.
Mm.
And we talked about the baggage behind
Sure.
that, evolutionary baggage that goes way back. A lot of dark pagans like a dark aesthetic. They have a reputation for gothiness.
Yeah, you're not dressed in black.
No.
You
Hey,
got your Hawaiian shirt there.
that's right. I'm here in Texas, and we're already pushing 90. So there's something to being practical there. But and that gets to a point. You don't have to go with the gothy darkness if you don't want to. Be authentic to yourself.
Mm.
Be authentic to yourself. And if your self is rainbows and unicorns and sunshine and, a tie-dye, go for it.
Yeah.
Don't follow the herd, even if the herd is a gothy, dark pagan herd.
Uh-huh.
That is another very important dark pagan value.
Yeah, you're just making me think of, I don't know how many times I've had a client who meets me for the first time and goes, "Oh, you're normal." And they expect they're going to get the gypsy, dress and everything. Yeah.
Right.
Well, we do have to wind this up, but I just wanted to say that Llewellyn is giving one of our viewers or listeners a copy of your book. So I'm really excited to offer that. Frater, is there a way that people could contact you if they wanted to reach out to you?
Yes, indeed. Of course, I have a variety of ways of doing so. I have, if they want to reach me by email, my email is fratert@ftenebris.com. I also have a blog, darkfraterblogspot.com.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. It was really a joy. It was enlightening in this darkness.
That's good. I like that. And thank you very much.
And that was Frater Tenebris talking about the philosophy of dark paganism. We'll be back with tarot after a few messages.